The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of This Week in the AFL. Alongside my co-host, as always, Erik Watkins, I'm Stephen How you doing tonight, Erik?
Oh, feeling fantastic, and we picked a hell of a week to come back.
Yeah, we picked a great week to come back because, as I told you on our Twitter Messenger, it was one of the best weeks I've seen in my 2 years covering arena football. And we start with I feel like this was the bigger game, the Soul and the Brigade. And it finally happened, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time since June 17th, 2016, the Philadelphia Soul lose a game as they lose to the Brigade, who have won 3 in a row now, 49-42. And Erik, I said this so many times on the show. I said it in my articles. People believe I'm crazy for saying this, but once again, the Soul struggle offensively, and I just don't understand why people don't see this.
Well, I think they look past what they actually see on the field in the course of a game, and they just see the names. They see Radaba and his reputation. They see Clint Alzell and his reputation as a coach. They see Sean Kalua Inamoku. They see all these great receivers and talent, but they don't see that it doesn't always mesh together like it should. And this wasn't just a slow start. This was 60 minutes of a subpar performance, and Omar Smith, Baltimore, capitalized. Glad that I did not make that bet, because now I only have still one steak dinner to worry about.
Yeah, Erik was going to come on the show tonight and say, if the Soul go undefeated, that's 2 steak dinners, and then the Brigade go ahead and ruin that. But hey, you still got the Valor one. The Valor are currently 1-9, and they're playing the Soul this weekend, so it's looking pretty good right now. But we will get to that game a little later on, as well as Baltimore Brigade. Inside the arena, Baltimore Brigade beat writer Chase Risman and a San Antonio advocate as well. We're going to talk to him about something very interesting. I think he's been following for the past 2 years. And we're going to get into a little something else. And that's the next segment. But for now, we stick to last week. And like you agree with me, obviously. The Soul offense struggled. The Brigade took advantage. Beat the Soul. They have won 3 in a row. And what kept the Soul in this game was their defense. I don't know if you watched the game, Erik. I know I did, because I found it an interesting matchup to begin with. The Soul were down 49-35 halfway through the fourth, and I'm like, uh-oh, they're in trouble. And they were. But the Soul scored, and then out of nowhere, here comes Dwayne House with interception. I'm thinking, okay, this is Soul football now. They're gonna tie this game up. So pretty much my point here is that the defense pretty much kept them in this game, as Dwayne House showed, picking off a chain guard and pass when they were down just 7.
But keep in mind, they had a great defense, and I was able to catch the last few minutes because I was watching a couple of other games covering for Soccer to the Max, which will be on later tonight. But one thing I saw right before that interception was another interception that, in my opinion, was just as big. Varma Sony, for the Brigade, picked off Radaba when the Soul were down 7, and that's what led to that 49-35 score. Shane Carden, who in my opinion cemented Rookie of the Year. It's done after this performance. He led that great touchdown drive, and that's what put Philadelphia up against the wall. And yes, that Hollis interception helped, but at the end, Philadelphia couldn't maintain the momentum for longer than a couple of drives.
You know, Erik, you just, once again, you steal the thunder. I was just going to say the same thing, how the Soul had the ball. They're in Brigade territory. They have a chance to tie the game, and of course, they can't do it. They turn the ball over on downs with just 3.3 seconds left, giving the Brigade their 3rd straight win, and the Soul their first loss since June 17th of 2016. We are now in, July 13th. July 13th, 2017. So it's been a while since the Soul had lost. Speaking of Shane Carden, I did watch the whole game, like I said. It was on CBS Sports Network, not AFL.com or any of that. Shane Carden got off to a very, very slow start. I mean, I guess this happens to a lot of rookies in their respective leagues. But Shane Carden got to a very slow start in this game. And then in the second half, he just picked it up. He wound up with, I believe, 5 or 6 total touchdowns. And, like Erik said, we wrote an article about it on InsideTheArena.org. You can go check that out. Shane Carden has all but clinched the Rookie of the Year award for himself. It's 6 total touchdowns. I have it right here. 6 total touchdowns, 5 passing, including a Hail Mary. At that was that, and I don't know. I bet Erik saw this. 5 passing touchdowns, including a Hail Mary at the end of the half. It was his first touchdown pass of the game. A Hail Mary to Paul Browning. It was a great play altogether. Shane Carden avoided the rush from the Soul, got out, chucked the ball up there, and who else was there but Paul Browning to catch it for the touchdown. It shows a lot about Shane Carden, not just Paul Browning. It says Shane Carden, obviously, great quarterback. He showed that I believe he played in the CAFL, I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure he did. I remember watching him, and he did pretty well in the CAFL. He's doing well in the AFL. He's making a name for himself. I'm liking what I'm seeing. And the Brigade got the win. Their defense really got in that win. Shane Carden did well, but their defense, like Erik said earlier, they gave them that lead. The interception in the end zone, which, by the way, was not much Broadabout's fault. The defender just stole it from Money Reynolds in the end zone. It was a great play by the defender. But nonetheless, Broadabout did struggle a lot. A whole lot. And we said that already on the show. I'm not sure what happened to Erik. Seems Erik has dropped from this podcast, so I will continue. I'm going to continue going on here, and we will have Chase Risman, Baltimore Brigade, beat writer for Inside the Arena, and advocate for the Arena Football League in San Antonio here on the show. In a little bit, we will have him on, whether it be me or me and Erik. Erik and I. Excuse my my grammar there. Final thoughts from this game. It's not going to be as easy for the Soul as we thought getting back into the Arena Bowl. I'm sure they will get back into the Arena Bowl, but I don't know how easy it's going to be for them. So we will see about that. Now we move on to the other game. Cleveland, and like I said earlier to start the show, and Erik agreed with me, this is one of the best weeks we have seen in Arena football in a very long time. I mean, you have the Soul losing, stepping their 17-game win streak. Then you have the Gladiators, who have been playing better, but have still at a sub-500 record, still in fourth place in the Arena Football League playoff race, pulling off an upset of the Tampa Bay Storm. They really did. It was an upset way, no matter how you look at it. First of all, the Gladiators dominated the game from the start. I mean, the Gladiators got off to a very hot start. At one point, they led 31-14, 31-13. You get the point. I'm not sure what the score was. 34-13 at one point. The Cleveland Gladiators led the Tampa Bay Storm 34-13 at one point. And it's crazy because you have this super team. Randy Hippert, Joe Hills, Kendrick Kings, Lamarck Brown. And you go down to Arvell Nelson, Larry Brackens, Colin Taylor. No, not the rack on Colin Taylor, but his numbers have been down this year. Colin Taylor. You have these guys, and your numbers are down from last season with these guys. And here you are dominating Randy Hippert, Joe Hills, Kendrick Kings, Lamarck Brown, and all that. So they got off to a hot start. And at one point they did lead 34-13, but the Storm came back because they are the Storm. The Storm do amazing things here in the Arena Football League in 2017. Last year, not so much. Now they got a better team, better coach, and they're looking good. So they came back. And at one point, and as time expired, down they're 41-33. Joe Hill scores. And now we're sitting there. We're like, uh-oh. The Storm are about to tie this game right now. Unfortunately, they could not tie the game. They missed a 2-point conversion. And the Gladiators pull off a stunning win over Tampa, 41-39. Big win for the Gladiators, by the way. If the Storm if the Soul had beaten the Brigade, the Gladiators would be tied or have the lead in the arena football race.
Yeah, apparently my computer disagreed with me on my last little statement, but I kind of wanted to wrap up with, yes, Shane Carden, he did have a slow start against Philadelphia. Arguably, who hasn't, especially against that vaunted defense? And
sure.
Combine this with the Gladiators beating the Storm, and I mentioned this on Twitter. This is going to provide a boost for the league and for these teams for the rest of the season. Tampa Bay is now going to be very angry, very determined, because while they lost, they would still have an outside shot at gaining that 1 seed. They've locked out top 2. Philadelphia, they're even angrier. Sorry, Valor, you're in the way. They're going to take it out on you, because they had a chance to tie the record for longest regular season winning streak, longest overall streak. Both of those now all of a sudden gone. Instead of a historic team on the verge of what would have only been the second undefeated regular season and on the verge of possibly the second undefeated season overall, you can thank Tampa Bay for beating Orlando in a War on I-4 Arena Bowl for that one. But this is just so much now, because now Baltimore and Cleveland on the opposite ends are thinking, okay, we can beat these guys when we see them again. We can go ahead, get ourselves respectable records going into the playoffs, and officially leave the Valor behind.
Yeah, so my final thought we're going to backtrack now that Erik's back with us here on This Week in the AFL. My final thoughts on this game were it's not going to be as easy for the Soul to run to the Arena Bowl as we first thought. What are your final thoughts on this game?
This one, look at this. For every team that will see Philadelphia the rest of the season, you have your blueprint. Study everything you can. Apply everything you can while you can. You can beat this team because now they've gone from vulnerable to beatable.
Yes, they have. They have definitely gone from vulnerable to beatable. They do host the Valor, so I don't know if they'll be beatable in that game. But we'll get to that, again, like I said, later in the show. Now we go on to the other game, Gladiators and the Storm. And Erik, I start when we lost you. Well, we apologize for technical difficulty, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. I said, you have a team such as Cleveland where their numbers are down from last year, even though they have Marvell Nelson and Colin Taylor. I'm going up against this Tampa Super team and Randy Hipper, Kendrick Ings, Lamarck Brown, Coach Ron James. And you watch this game and you're like, wait a minute. The Glads lead 34-13 at one point. They were just dominating Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm. Now, this goes to another move that I had mentioned. Joe Hills. We've seen where not having a number one receiver can do to this league. This hurt Tampa Bay because they really couldn't solidify a game plan without him. Yes, Kendrick Ings. Yes, Lamarck Brown. Yes, you had a lot of great focal points, but no one really outshone anybody else is for being the guy that could take over Joe Hills. I think Cleveland did very well in capitalizing on that, and I will say this, and we also touched on this off air, what happened over these past 10 days with Joe Hills, this is going to not only shape a very interesting future for the AFL, but for at least one other league as well.
Oh, yes. We were going to talk about the Joe Hills situation. We might have time for that at the end of the show. We'll see how it goes. But now we have Chase Risman coming on tonight, so we'll see what happens. But like I said when you went off, the Storm did Storm things. They came back, and as time expired, mind you, Joe Hill scored a touchdown. It's a 2-point game, and you're thinking the Storm are about to tie this game. Unfortunately, they missed the 2-point conversion, and the Gladiators pull off a. No, I would say it's a pretty big upset.
I personally would say it would, just because look at what Tampa Bay's done to Cleveland all throughout this season. Yes, it's been close game after close game after close game, but the Storm have always found a way to put it away. Now they haven't. And now, I guess you could say Cleveland's finally gotten their revenge. You could say with law of averages, this is bound to happen. But this is still a big deal, the fact that it happened.
Yep, it happened. The Gladiators pull off an upset of the Storm, 41-39. The Gladiators go to 4, I believe they're 4-8, maybe 4-6.
I'm going to have to check up on those standings.
We'll have to check up on that, but I know the Tampa Bay Storm are 8-3 now, losing 2 of their last 3 games. Of course, one to the Soul. That's understandable because the Soul at one point were that unbeatable. Now we're questioned a little bit. But another point I want to make while Erik looks up the record for the Cleveland Gladiators, with the Brigade and the Gladiators pulling up their upsets, nothing really changed in the playoff picture. Because, and I said this when Erik was off air, the Brigade still lead because they won. If the Brigade had lost to the Soul, Cleveland could have jumped them for third. But now that the Brigade and the Gladiators both won, and the Soul lost, and the Storm lost, everybody's in the same place. The Soul in first, Tampa in second, Baltimore third, Cleveland in fourth, and interesting scenario for Washington, they have to win out to get to the playoffs.
Yeah, about that. You know, there's a term in sports to where you're still considered mathematically alive for a playoff position.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it at that.
But I want to talk about this before we bring Chase on after our commercial break. This happened while we were off, the week we were off last week, because I was doing my NAL Now Road to the NAL title game. Erik Meyer retired. Like, he was on IR. He was set to come back, and he decided to hang it up. Now, Eric's going to love this. I'm on his side. The Washington Valor, will not win another game in 2017. Why? Well, because Sean Brackett has lost them 9 in a row. I mean, you think he's going to win him a game? And then I just talked to Mike Washington yesterday. He's not going to play against the Soul. It's just getting worse and worse for Washington. Excuse me.
I mean, I'm hoping this means you can concede that steak dinner now, so that way I can go ahead and plan things. But you're right. Erik Meyer, he was one of their main hopes as far as getting back, even if they didn't win, having some sort of respectability. And while Reggie Gray was fortunate enough to be able to come back for Baltimore, not the same half hour south down on the other beltway. So this hurts. While Sean Brackett is a serviceable quarterback, capable quarterback, he's not in a position where he can win you a lot of games. Now you take away the best receiver not named T.T. Tolliver or Mike Washington,
right?
Even though that's for one game against the Soul, that's one extra game to where he's got to come back, got to adjust, reinsert himself into the offense, and one extra week that the Valor are going to struggle. They're running out of weeks in the season.
Yes. The thing that I was going to make a point of for Mike Washington was he gets wide open. We saw it during the AFL season. We've seen it during the AFL season. The guy gets wide open. He breaks defenders' ankles. Excuse me. Now that he's out, there's something I want to say, but I can't say it on air. so I'm not going to say it. I'll have to tell Erik off air. But when we come back, you know him, you love him. Well, not really. A lot of people don't like him. Inside the Arena, Baltimore Brigade beat writer and advocate for the Arena Football in San Antonio, Chase Risman joins us on the other side. You are listening to This Week in the AFL.
Hello to all you Arena League football fans out there. I want to personally welcome you to join us, AFL Fan Zone, every Tuesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time for a weekly recap of all things AFL. You got stuff to do on the weekends, which means you probably don't have time to sit down and watch every single game every week. That's where AFL Fan Zone comes in. Not only do we break down the week, but we provide you with everything you need to stay up to date with the AFL, including Players of the Week, Power Rankings, and the weekly standings. Best part is, the recap is fully interactive between the viewers and the host. Just search AFL Fan Zone on YouTube and you can find all of our archived videos, including game previews, recaps, and weekly updates. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and at our website at www.aflfanzone.com. AFL Fan Zone, your internet home for the best AFL fans.
Hi, I'm Donovan James, and welcome to the Don James High School Football Report, everybody, where we discuss and debate the hottest prep and college football recruiting topics in the country every week. Only here on NGSC Sports, 9:30 Eastern. For more, follow me on Twitter at Don James Sports.
It's game time, boys, and we know football. Football the Max is the podcast for you if you want in-depth analysis over the NFL and college football. We preview all the action coming your way over the weekend. And we break down all the big action after it's happened. Plus, we tackle all the big news topics and discuss everything when it comes to the gridiron. So come check out Football to the Max every Tuesday morning and Friday morning on the W2M network.
Are you an Arena football fan looking for the latest news involving your team? Inside the Arena has you covered. Check us out for the latest news around both the Arena Football League and the Chinese Arena Football League. Read all of our stellar articles at InsideTheArena.org. Also, follow us on Twitter at Inside_Arena and like us on Facebook at Facebook.com/InsideTheArena.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to This Week in the AFL alongside Erik Watkins. I'm Stephen Err. We are having trouble right now getting in touch with Chase. We are working on that, but we're ready. We have something to cover that. Erik, we talked about it on the other segment. Joe Hills.
Mm-hmm.
What I want to go on. I'm going to go on in this. So everybody knows that follows Marine football. He went from the Storm. Then he decided, I'm going to take my talents to Jacksonville. And the next week he's back with the Storm.
Mm-hmm. I have some unconfirmed rumors which I believe to be true about a lot of motives for how all of this transpired. And it's nothing against Joe Hills, but hearing what I heard, if true, it proved a lot of points of what I mentioned about the NAL. Now, when I had mentioned this, what happened is going to shape the future of both leagues. Here on the AFL side, this is something that the Players Union needs to address and shore up with the league. Because under original circumstances, in my general assumption, when he decided to sign with Jacksonville, I knew immediately he was going to be on league suspension. I knew that immediately that league suspension was going to last a while. Because while the AFL has, you could call it sweetheart deals with the CFL and NFL, that is considered in their mind making a step up. This best case scenario is considered a lateral move, and the league doesn't like that. Then, as the story developed, the suspension was only going to be 4 games. Then all of a sudden, we find that he was reactivated on the roster for this week's game. And I at least thought that with Jacksonville in their playoffs. He was in their semifinal game, scored in their semifinal game. I thought that he was going to be here in Jacksonville for the championship game. That was the original deal based upon the rumors I heard various places around. That didn't happen. So now I'm wondering what's really going on. What is the AFL's front office going to do about this? What are the players' union going to do about this? How is this going to be handled in an upcoming collective bargaining agreement? All of these things are going to be key points for where the AFL is now and how it's going to go moving forward. And at the same time for the NAL, with a little bit of a reputation that they've gained over the past 5-6 weeks as they wound down their season, the fact that they were able to pull this off, what is that going to mean for the NAL going forward, given their issues with some of their teams? So, how both leagues react to this in the next 3 to 6 months, extremely critical for what type of leagues we're going to see and what leagues I think we are going to see come 2018. This is going to be, as I said, very, very tremendous. The AFL was on a little bit of shaky ground, starting to get better. The NAL is on also very shaky ground. So I would like to see what really both leagues do with this, because if you've got rumors going around with money, lots of it, trading hands, this is a bad look.
Yeah, it's a bad look for Joe Hills. And I wanted to say this. Bring up my notes right here. So he went from the Storm to the Sharks, and back to the Storm. What I'm wondering, though, is why he decided to do that. Like, I don't understand why if you're going to play for another team in another league, at least do it for the rest of the way. Don't go one game and say, I don't want to play in the NL title game with them. I want to play with the Storm. Like, why? It just doesn't make no sense.
Well,
pray it the rest of the way out.
Well, true. And again, I thought that was going to happen. So this leads me to one of two conclusions. Either he called off whatever deal it was, he decided with the level of talent, he was happier with Tampa Bay, where Tampa Bay was going this year, or there were promises made but unkept. I wasn't in the room when this happened, so I can only say this on a basis of conjecture. But at the same time, there's way too much conjecture for my liking.
If I'm a player and I decided I'm going to do this, okay, so that was our Joe Hills talk. Now joining us here on This Week in the AFL, finally got it all figured out. Baltimore Brigade beat writer,
sorry guys, I gotta go.
San Antonio advocate, AFL advocate for Inside the Arena, Chase Risman. What's going on tonight, Chase?
Hey, Steven, how are you?
Doing great. Erik Watkins, Tampa Bay Storm beat writer on Inside the Arena, is also with us.
How you doing, Chase?
Awesome.
So I'm going to get right into it with the San Antonio thing. You said in our group, I believe it was on the Arena Football Talk group chat on Facebook, they are, quote-unquote, the whole San Antonio Arena Football League thing is, quote-unquote, done. What do you mean by what do you mean by that?
Well, when I said that, I mean, obviously, and let me just make this clear, first of all. They haven't, the Spurs themselves haven't come out, like Rick Pitch, the guy that basically runs the whole Spurs Sports and Entertainment, or Juliana Holt, or any of the people that work for the Spurs. None of them have actually come out and said that we're basically not going to pursue an Arena League franchise, but if you basically read the tea leaves, as Adam Markowitz says, you read the tea leaves and you see what's going on around right now, you can obviously tell the focus of SS&E is the MLS. I mean, that's pretty much been their focus ever since they bought Toyota Field not last November, back in 2015. But ever since then, the whole focus from them, for their perspective, has been soccer, MLS, SAFC, and I mean, you can see it everywhere here. I mean, Mayor Nierenberg is behind it. He even said yesterday, a couple days ago that he was asked about, the prospect of a AAA baseball stadium for a possible team here downtown. He said, right now our 100% focus is on the MLS coming to San Antonio, or potentially coming to San Antonio. And, I mean, that's just... Obviously, like I said, the Spurs haven't said anything, but if you take that and you look around town, like all the city officials want soccer and all the Spurs are doing is soccer, you can probably speculate from there that the Spurs probably had their chance in 2014. They had their chance again in 2015, and combine that with all the crap that the AFL has had to deal with the last couple of years, I would pretty much think it's over. I hope I'm wrong, but we'll see.
Now, Chase, for Soccer to the Max here, one of our main topics over the past few months has been MLS expansion, candidate cities, where the league wants to go, which cities are flourishing. Now, with all of that, and with the shift from the entire city's MUB focus from arena football to soccer, given the market and what have you, I want to ask this. If by some reason San Antonio doesn't get that MLS bid, especially for this near-term round of expansion, would things potentially focus back to arena football, or would it go to some of the other projects you've mentioned? Or basically, if this doesn't work, then what?
Oh, well, I think if MLS does not happen, like, this year, is that what you're asking?
Right, because right now, MLS is looking at 4 expansion cities, and my presumption, and I've mentioned this on the soccer podcast, maybe another 4 down the road, but that's to be determined. But
right.
Just in the short term,
they're not, they're going to keep doing it until they announce the full 28. I mean, that just makes sense. Why would you, if you're going to get prepared and then you still have a shot at being 27 or 28, why would you just stop and focus on something else? You still got to try all you can to be the other two, even if they announce it in 2018.
Right, but my argument is, if they're not one of the 4, and that's why I say about these near term, with over the next season, 2 seasons, if they're not one of these 4, then what for the city? Does it go back to arena football? Does it go to AAA baseball? Where does it go from the city?
I think the only way that it goes back to the AFL is, the league is going to have to pick itself up. They got to get out of the turmoil that they've been in. And even then, I think it would have to take maybe a few years for them to say, okay, we've got everything. Because you remember the first team we had, excuse me. All right, sorry about that. The first team we had was in 1992, and they were only there for a year. I wasn't around to see those guys, but they only played 1 year. They shut down, and then we had to wait 20 years for another one, and then they only lasted 3 years, and now here we are 3 years after that. And if there's going to be another team here, the league is going to have to really show signs of improvement. And honestly, if MLS does not happen, I think they would probably go to AAA baseball. And if that wouldn't work, then maybe they'd go back to the Arena League. But they're going to have to really step up their game. The league is, if the Spurs are ever going to say, okay, we're in.
Yeah, it's going to be a while till And I know I've been working with Chase since last February, and he's always been saying AFL in San Antonio. But now, as he says here on This Week in the AFL podcast, it's over. Sorry about that, but maybe think to some work down the road. So I'm going to switch over now to what's going on in the AFL, and that is the Baltimore Brigade. They have won 3 in a row. Shane Carn is the Rookie of the Year. There's no questioning that anymore. Now we're looking to the playoffs, because
oh boy,
pretty much things are set up now in the AFL for the playoffs. You got pretty much what I'm seeing is Philadelphia hosts Cleveland, Baltimore hosts Tampa Bay. But of course, there's so much going on. There's a few weeks left. I want to ask you. First question is: do you think the Brigade could upset the Soul at the Wells Fargo Center?
Well, I mean, they did just beat him in Baltimore, so I mean, if they can beat him in Baltimore, technically they can beat him in Philly. But if they're going to, technically, but I mean, on a serious note, if they are going to do that, they really need to bring it because, like, they aren't the same on the road as they are at home, and that's really been noticeable this year. So they can do it, but they're going to really need to bring it and play pretty much a very good game of football from kickoff to the very last whistle if they're going to beat Philly in Philly. I don't doubt that they can do it. They did just beat them, although it was in Baltimore. But, hey, you know, if anyone is going to upset Philly before the Arena Bowl, I would say Baltimore's got the best shot of doing it.
Wow. Bold statement right there from Chase Risman, Baltimore Brigade, beat writer from inside the arena. Second question, could they beat the Storm in a Molly Arena down in Tampa?
Oh, it's a Molly Arena?
Emily.
Okay. Potato.
I've always thought it was a melee. I never could pronounce it right. Thank you for finally clarifying that. Like I said, with Philly, you know, they're really going to have to bring their A game if they want to beat either Philly or Tampa. And I mean, the way I look at it is, of course they can. But if they're going to do it, you know, like I said, they've really got to bring everything. You know, defense has to play well. The offense is going to be fine. I mean, with Carden back there and Reggie Gray, et cetera, they've just really got to come up with some stops defensively and take advantage of that on offense. Of course, that's what the whole point of the Arena League is about. And they do that, you know, who knows, maybe they could beat the Storm. I would still take Tampa, but I do think Baltimore would make it interesting.
Now, kind of want to piggyback off of that, especially how you say what they struggle on the road. And with the league standings the way they are, Baltimore's going to have to travel regardless. Who do you think would be the better semifinal matchup for Baltimore?
Whew. Oh, man. I mean,
got him thinking.
Well, you know, those are two really good teams they're playing. So, I mean, and they're both on the road. So, but, I mean, honestly, I'd have to say Tampa because even though they did just beat Philly, one, obviously, as I've said, the game was in Baltimore, and two, the two times that they've played Philly at the Wells Fargo Center, they've gotten annihilated. Well, the first time they got annihilated. The second time they got blown out, but that wasn't. But it was like they pulled away in the fourth quarter, so they don't do very well, like on the road in Philly. Like they're normally out of it by the end of the third quarter. But with Tampa, I think they're a lot more competitive with them, and I think they'd have a better shot with the Storm than they would with the Soul on the road. So I would say Tampa would probably be the better matchup for them.
Chase Risman, Baltimore Brigade, beat writer for Inside the Arena, and Arena Football and San Antonio advocate joining us here on This Week in the AFL. Last question. You're in, I'm in a lot of Facebook groups. I don't know if you are too, that talk about Arena Football and all that. And all I keep hearing, the league is a joke. It's 5 teams, this, that, and the other. Do you feel the future of the Arena Football League is in jeopardy?
You know, I honestly, if I were to say right now that it's not in jeopardy, I would be straight up lying. So, I mean, yeah, I'd say it is because, it's really amazing. Thinking about this, I've been thinking about this all day. Today is the 5th anniversary of the very first Talons game I went to. They beat Arizona 62-61 to get home field advantage, blah, 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 blah. I say that because that day there were 17 teams in the AFL. Here we are 5 years later, and there's 5. I mean, if I had thought that night that, okay, 5 years from now, not only is our team going to be gone, but the league is barely going to be operating with 5 teams, I would have called myself stupid. But, I mean, at the same time, things have been happening. People lose money because the league has to take over teams because the league hires incompetent people to run the franchises in the case of Chicago. And, I really hate to say this, but in the case of our team, too. So, I mean, yes, I'd say the league is in jeopardy because you've got a guy up there in Vegas or Chicago or wherever the league's headquarters are these days. I think last check it was Vegas, but
it's still Vegas.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. It is? It is still Vegas, okay. That's what I figured. Scott, we have a commissioner who supposedly is a very, very wealthy guy, a millionaire commissioner who should be able to get our league back to where it was. He should be able to persuade teams to come in here. And to his credit, I've always been a supporter of his, even though he messed up with the Outlaws, he messed up with Portland. He got the Wizards in here. He got us the Wizards. He got us the Valor, the Brigade. I mean, he deserves credit for getting Ted Leonsis in. And because of that, pretty much every time the Spurs play the Wizards now, I say to myself, okay, this is the biggest game of this. These are the 2 biggest games of the season now for the Spurs from a business standpoint. Forget the Warriors, forget everybody else. But, I mean, I'll give him that. But at the same time, other than that, what has he done for the league to help it grow? Because since he came on, and I know Jerry Kurz gets a lot of heat because he lost a lot of teams too, but since since Butera came on, we have lost the Talons, the Barnstorm, or not the Barnstormers, the Power, the Outlaws, the Shock, or Empire now. And now they really are gone because they just ceased operations.
Yep.
San Jose, New Orleans, Arizona, etc., etc. I could really go on and on. We've lost, I think, 12 teams since he came in, which is in 2 years. That is staggering. That is just... I mean, you could honestly say that Butera is just as bad, if not a worse commissioner than Jerry Kurz, because he hasn't done a whole lot for the league either. As a matter of fact, I could argue the league has gotten worse under Butera than it was with Kurz, and Kurz's tenure as commissioner was pretty god-awful enough with what happened with him. So, to answer the question, I think the league's future is in jeopardy, and if it does go down, you can blame Scott Butera for that, and you can also blame the owners of the other teams, not the ones that left, not the ones who went to the IFL. I mean, it's not their fault. They made it as a business choice, and there's nothing against them. But the owners that weren't fit to run the teams, like Starl in Chicago, Vince Neal in Las Vegas, Dan Newman in New Orleans, and of course David Lind right here in San Antonio. I mean, you could blame those people too, because the league vetted them in. They let them in. And as you know, they let Starl in without doing a background check on him. And, I mean, that's who you can blame if the league goes down. So, yes, the league's future is in jeopardy. And to be honest, if it makes it to next year, you could pretty much throw a parade. Because I can't imagine, them going on another year with 5 teams. There's got to be some expansion hopefully coming up here, whether they announce it at the Arena Bowl or afterwards.
Yeah, we're all hoping here inside the arena that there is some sort of arena football expansion, but that is Chase Risman, Baltimore Brigade beat writer for Inside the Arena, and former, so we can say former, now that it's pretty much over, former arena football and San Antonio advocate. Chase, we want to thank you for joining us tonight on This Week in the AFL, and you and I will definitely talk soon. Thanks, bud.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, we will be right back. Okay, now Eric and I, we were talking about it. We were excited for it. Time to preview Week 15. On the other side, you are listening to This Week in the AFL.
Hello to all you Arena League football fans out there. I want to personally welcome you to join us, AFL Fan Zone, every Tuesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time for a weekly recap of all things AFL. You got stuff to do on the weekends, which means you probably don't have time to sit down and watch every single game every week. That's where AFL Fan Zone comes in. Not only do we break down the week, but we provide you with everything you need to stay up to date with the AFL, including Players of the Week, Power Rankings, and the weekly standings. Best part is, the recap is fully interactive between the viewers and the host. Just search AFL Fan Zone on YouTube and you can find all of our archived videos, including game previews, recaps, and weekly updates. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and at our website at www.aflfanzone.com. AFL Fan Zone, your internet home for the best AFL fans.
Hi, I'm Donovan James, and welcome to the Don James High School Football Report, everybody, where we discuss and debate the hottest prep and college football recruiting topics in the country every week. Only here on NGSC Sports, 9:30 Eastern. For more, follow me on Twitter at Don James Sports.
It's game time, boys, and we know football. Football the Max is the podcast for you if you want in-depth analysis over the NFL and college football. We preview all the action coming your way over the weekend. And we break down all the big action after it's happened. Plus, we tackle all the big news topics and discuss everything when it comes to the gridiron. So come check out Football to the Max every Tuesday morning and Friday morning on the W2M network.
Are you an arena football fan looking for the latest news involving your team? Inside the Arena has you covered. Check us out for the latest news around both the Arena Football League and the Chinese Arena Football League. Read all of our stellar articles at InsideTheArena.org. Also, follow us on Twitter at Inside_Arena and like us on Facebook at Facebook.com/InsideTheArena.
To This Week in the AFL. Alongside Eric Watkins, I'm Stephen Erd. That was Chase Risman, Baltimore Brigade beat writer and former advocate for the Arena Football League in San Antonio. Last segment. So now we move on. We've touched up on it a little bit throughout the show. Seoul, Valor. This is the Valor's first ever game at the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia. But before we get to that game, I want to touch up on the last game that the Seoul played when they struggled against the Baltimore Brigade. I just said they struggled, so yeah, there's that. But Eric, I am not worried at all that they will struggle against Washington at all. Like, none. 0% they struggle against Washington.
I mean, they got off to a surprisingly hot start in their last game against Tampa Bay. I would expect at the very least the same this week because they had a very well-executed game plan against a very solid Tampa Bay defense. Washington's isn't even close, so unless Radabah gets possessed by some sort of life form a la Space Jam and he's just god-awful that first quarter, it's going to be maybe 21-7, 28-7, and then the Soul are just going to cruise on to a win from there.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring up the point that Mike Washington was supposed to come off of IR this week, but he told me yesterday he will not be playing in this game. So, and I told Erik off air what I wanted to say, but I'm not going to say it on here. If Erik had ever talked Arena Football on his podcast, Point of Viewer, also here on W2Net.com, I'm sure he would say it. Not here on This Week in the AFL.
I would start by saying that and then add what comes next, and then what comes next, and then what comes after that. But no. There's just we have to spare our audiences, especially my audiences, sometimes.
This is why we love having Erik here at W2Mnetwork.com. He says the darndest things, just like the kids on Bill Cosby's old show. But yeah, I want to piggyback off of what Erik just said. He thinks that it could be 28-7 1 point, and then Soldiers run away with it. I have a feeling it's going to be at least 21-0 at the end of the first quarter, and then like Erik just said, they're just going to run with it. The Soul, pardon me, the Valor have dignified themselves as the worst team in the league. They have to win out at this point just to make the playoffs. And they're going up against the best team in the league. Yeah, it's not happening.
No. They have proven Brackett can only do but so much. Their secondary has been able to do almost nothing. Even you have James the Commissioner Gordon. How many times have you heard his name the last couple of weeks? I'm sorry. I think this is just an even worse case of, a team is hitting a wall. It's just the team has nothing left. There's just nothing there.
There's not much there at all. There's not even so much. There's so much not there for Washington. I don't know about you, Erik, but I've run out of notes talking about this game already.
Yeah, with Brackett, he's shown he has to find a dependable receiver early. What is the Soul defense going to do? Be it Tolliver, be it McLean, be it Carr, whomever. They're going to look at that first drive and say, okay, Brackett is going to him. Let's focus him because he's not going to throw anywhere else. We can get in his face a little bit, make him think even faster, but we're not going to have to. We're going to make him pay for it.
It's going to be very tough without Mike Washington. That's all I can really say for Washington in this game against Philadelphia, which will be on CBS Sports Network this Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I think the AFL picked the wrong game to put on the network, but it is what it is.
For the powers that be at the AFL and CBS Sports Network, forgive me for watching the Gold Cup in this stead. I'm sorry, but it's no.
Just no. So that's that for the Soul and Valor game. Not much to watch there. It will be on 7 Eastern, CBS Sports Network, though. So now we move on to the better game of the week. The Brigade hosts the Storm. First 2-game losing streak of the season. Now the Brigade looking for their 4th straight.
Now,
go ahead. I'll let you go.
No, I was just going to say, with this one, Tampa Bay has got to be very careful. As I said at the beginning of the show, Tampa Bay is going to be angry. But Baltimore is very focused. They're in a rhythm. They've got Reggie Gray back. Carden has figured out a lot over the course of the last 5-6 weeks. He's going to be someone very confident and say, I just ruined a historic streak. I'm going to create history of my own, especially with another home game. This is a bad recipe for Tampa Bay. Bad.
It's funny, I was going to say how if Baltimore wins, I'm not sure I would call this an upset, and you go ahead and say that, so it pretty much clicked right there. But there's nothing else that I could say about this game. This, and a lot of people think I'm crazy when they listen to this. This is the best matchup of quarterbacks in the league right now. You have Randy Hipper is my MVP for the AFL. We'll get to that, the week before the Arena Bowl. We'll talk a little bit about the MVP race and all that. He's my MVP right now. Shane Carden, Rookie of the Year. They're going to bash heads. The better quarterback's going to win this game.
Not only is the better quarterback going to win this game, just like how we were talking and we went into last week, if Shane Carden did at the very least well, he would cinch up Rookie of the Year.
Right.
He did. If Randy Hipper does just as well with all of the chaos over the past fortnight, he won't cinch MVP, but he will come close. On top of that, one matchup to watch out for, and I'm going to see how often this happens. Joe Hills versus Varmasoni. Who is going to win that battle? And if it's Hills, does he steal the MVP thunder from Randy Hipper? That now becomes plausible.
So you're saying if Joe Hills does well, he could win MVP, or the Baltimore defender?
If Varmasoni does well, then that would have him as a big candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. But if Joe Hills does well, then yes. I think with how Tampa Bay's performed in his absence, that cements at the very least a solid argument in the top 3 voting for MVP for himself.
Wow. Joe Hills for MVP, that would be something. By the way, I'm pretty sure this is the game. If Joe Hill scores a touchdown, he owns the Arena Football League record for most consecutive games with a touchdown pass. He would be at 78.
He would
Yep,
he would tie it. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Well, close enough. He will tie it at 77 then?
No, he would tie it at 78.
Oh, okay.
When he left, he was 1 short.
Right. And I didn't think when he came back that he would still be able to have that record because he didn't play that one game, but I guess statistics and all. Eric's the math major.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but he did come back last week.
Yeah, he played. Yes.
Played and scored. So then I am mistaken. That one was the 78th, which tied the record. You were initially correct. This is the week he would break it.
Ooh. As you heard on my podcast, the SU show, I like being right. Of course, I'm not right about the Yankees anymore, but that's another story for another time. But all in all, unlike the Seoul Valley game, I expect a closely contested game between the Brigade and the Storm. Anything short of at least 3 points. The winning team wins by a field goal. If we don't have that, it's going to be kind of disappointing for me.
I wouldn't even say field goal. I say watch the extra points.
That is a good point.
I haven't seen a whole lot of reliability the past month. That, I've said it in past games, I'm saying it in this one. That's going to be a factor.
That is a good point. The problem in the AFL is that the goal posting is so skinny. It's very hard to kick extra points or field goals and do it. So we'll see. That could be the factor for the losing team in this one. It could be an extra point attempt that is missed.
Well,
Any final... Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, the goalposts have always been 9 feet apart, 15 feet high. The problem's been with teams opting to go for it on 4th down and go for more 2-point conversions. Kickers haven't been able to kick as many field goals or as extra points like in seasons past. Before everybody cries, where's Remy Hamilton when you need him? Blame these teams for the rule changes and changing their strategy to where field goals aren't an option.
Yeah, there are a lot of problems with kickers this year. I mean, a lot of missed extra points have cost teams games and all that other stuff. That's going to be something that coaches need to practice on going forward is the kicking game. So, any final thoughts heading into Week 15, Eric?
I hope there's at least a decent way that we can see this matchup because, again, Week 15. After this, there's only 3 weeks left in the season. Yes, we have our playoff teams, but this is where everybody's going to prove their mettle.
It's going to be an interesting 3 weeks, ladies and gentlemen, in the Arena Football League. No matter what people think of the league, it's going to be interesting up until the end. So that is going to do it here for this week in AFL alongside my co-host Erik Watkins. I'm Stephen Err. I'm taking off next week. Chase will be on with Erik hosting the show. So until next week, enjoy the Arena Football League week as much as you can. And we will see you next week, everybody.
Peace.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.